welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is a video based on kind of a new set, but with some older images. Nature set number 22. It's the Deep Space Figures set, and it features the Milky Way Lg, Nebula with Star, Starbirth, and Spiral Galaxy. I'm finding that people are, these have been around for some time, but it seems like people kind of have responded to these images over the last couple years, so I've always wanted to put them into one set to make them fairly convenient for people. But I tend to think that when these types of images are used, stars, deep space imageries, things of that sort, it kind of adds kind of a romantic sensibility to any type of card or scene. All right, so let's play around with these. Now, what I'm going to do, I've used these a lot in other scenes before, but what I'm going to do on this video is I thought I would do some kind of quick and easy applications of these designs so people can kind of get the feel of it that haven't used this type of imagery before, okay? Now, these are all tonal designs, and the negative space are the things that are defining the stars, okay? So a lot of times stars in drawings or stamp designs, might be something like this, this might be the star, okay? It's a dark object or it's a positive, and you can stamp it out in yellow or whatever. But what I've done in these types of drawings, like I do in all the Stampscapes drawings, is I do the reverse, okay? So that darkness defines light, like it would really be in kind of a natural setting as far as your light sources go. Suns, moons, stars, they're all defined by the tone around them, okay? So kind of learning how to use that type of imagery, for those that haven't done it before, it's kind of a strange concept because they're used to stamping out positives as opposed to the utilization of negative space. Okay, but I think what you'll find is that these are very easy to do, and there's different ways to do it. Just as there's different media and surfaces that you can use them on. I have some pieces of glossy cardstock here, and we'll also stamp out some pieces on a matte cardstock. Okay, so these are both coated, glossy and matte. And just to throw something into the mix that's a little bit different is this iridescent, kind of metallic type of paper. It has that shimmer to it, that iridescence. This one's called the Metallics. Okay, so let's just pick any of these out. Okay, now when I use one of these images here, the way that you use any of them, it's universal, okay? You can use them just in the same exact manner, okay? Let's start off with the Starbirth here. Okay, this one happens to be, this set happens to be on the foam mounted, pre-trimmed set, okay? All right, now let's just go very straightforward. Let's just stamp out this imagery, stamp out maybe some landscape imagery underneath it, or we can just use this one. We can just be all sky. Maybe we'll do that. Let me just show you, as a matter of fact, let's show you how to stamp these types of images out in terms of the blending process of them, okay? Now remember, the way that I show you here, there's different ways to do it. In fact, maybe if we have time here, I'll show you kind of all of the basic ways to do it, okay? All right, so your basic way is just to go and stamp this out. Now, I could have had something down below, like a lake or a waterfall, any type of scenic stamping type of scenario, trees, okay? And I could have just stamped that right on here, okay? So we have an isolated impression of Starbirth. Now we have all this surrounding area. There's different things you can do with that, okay? I can stamp additional impressions of Starbirth and fill in this entire area, or I can stamp out something like clouds around it, or if I want to, especially if I have some other types of imagery in here, I can just fill in that negative space with color, and that will blend in the surrounding areas on here. But let's just do the multiple impression first so we can see how that looks, okay? All right, now, one of the things that you want to do, as much as what you do not want to do, okay, is you want to overlap your imagery. Okay, now the things that you don't want to do are to try to match up edge to edge too perfectly. You know, it's not like this puzzle where you're matching up perfectly like an edge to edge type of application. When you do that, the edges of the design tend to show, and I'll show you another trick on my next demonstration of this piece, okay? All right, so we see that here. So don't stamp out perfect edge to edge. This is not like putting together like a jigsaw puzzle, okay? See, I'm overlapping quite a bit, and I'm changing the angle, and I'm stamping into my previous impressions, okay? And when I say that, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, I mean, there's a wide tolerance here, so it's not like you have to be super careful, okay? So we're going into this, about like so. Now I'm stamping into 2 impressions here, okay? So this one went right along here, and then we have this space up here. So I'm going to take this and just stamp it right on in there like that, okay? I wouldn't recommend overlapping 70% or something like that, but, you know, 10, 15, 20%, you know, anything like that is fine, okay? Because these are tonal images. They're not outline style images, okay? When you get crisscrossing outlines, that's what you don't want to do, okay? That's why you do careful masking, placement, stamp positioners, that type of thing with, you know, a lot of linear types of designs. But I make these ones tonal for the purpose of the overlap and seamless integration of impressions, okay? See that? Where you can't really tell where one image ends and the other one begins because they just flow right into each other. A lot of people just are not used to that, so when they do this, they do real careful impressions, okay? All right, so we have something like that. Let me show you what not to do here, okay? Sometimes that's just as important, if not more important, okay? Now, even if you do what I call kind of, you know, too careful a technique, but it's also unnecessary and maybe bad technique. This goes for all scenic stamping images, not just sky images, and not just this image or these images on this entire plate. Okay, let me show you the super careful placement. See that right there? It's like someone putting together like bricks and mortar or something of that sort, like you're stacking bricks. People get really kind of scared of this process sometimes. And it's because they've come from different types of, you know, stamping where careful placement is needed, masking, etc. Okay? So now this is kind of like stacking it like bricks. Okay, see, and we can see all those edges, seams and whatnot showing, okay? Now let me show you just how easy it is to eradicate that. Okay, I've done these 1, 2, 3, 4 impressions of it. You can really see the space in between, okay? Let me just take this. This is a dye-based pad, by the way. Okay, so let's go in here and utilize better technique, meaning a little bit less careful, a lot more overlapping, much more carefree, okay? Now watch this one. I'm going to overlap this into this impression. I don't know, it's going to be like 3 inches maybe. Well, maybe not that much, but I'm overlapping a little bit more so because I want to eradicate those lines in there, okay? This is kind of like a deep navy blue. This one's the Prussian blue. Not that that matters. Okay, see that right down there? That's starting to integrate a little bit more. Let's see if we can get rid of these lines in here, okay? I don't know if I'll be able to get rid of all of them, but doing this is a start. And by the time I blend colors in here, I don't think we'd be able to see those lines at all anyway, so not really going to matter, but I know that sometimes when people do these types of things, they kind of get a little bit shell shock. Oh my god, I can see the line right there. And then even though I say, hey, it's not really going to matter, they're the types of people that are just, when they start blending in their colors, it didn't disappear after one color, but it'll disappear after you lay down, you know, like a few colors in there to get it to kind of blend in and disappear. Okay, so see that? That one, I got rid of half that line. Let's go for another impression. Right about here. Okay, so see, it's starting to integrate a little bit more. This is a really busy sky scenario here. I normally wouldn't have this much starburst. I'd put some clouds around it or something like that, but just for the sake of this instructional video, let's really kind of fill in some areas in here. Alright, so we have something like this. There's one right here, and here's the other. This one gets a little bit darker because I've done a lot more overlapping and whatnot. Okay, let's utilize these two right here, okay? And let's just keep it really simple, okay? All of my techniques are simple. Some look a lot more advanced because I just use more inks on some of them than others, okay? All right, so I just have a torn paper towel here. It has some inks that I was just playing around with yesterday. Let's grab some dye-based inks. Let me see. Let me grab some Distress inks. A lot of you are a lot more familiar with Distress inks than you are Marvy inks here. You could have stamped this out in Distress ink if you want to. Memento, whatever. Now, on the dye-based, on the glossy cardstock, you don't want to use like a pigment ink or something like that. It just, oil-based pigment inks don't dry on glossy cardstock very well. Okay, so, all right, we have some light blue. Oops, I use that Marvy ink here. Let's grab some Distress ink here. Okay, so Distress ink. You have a kitchen sponge, paper towel, Kleenex, whatever. Well, I don't know if I'd go on Kleenex. Kleenex might be too, I don't know, flimsy, you know, and it would tear and whatnot. But let's add some inks on here. Okay, now what you're going to do, don't fill in everything. Have some of those clouds, or some of those stars showing, okay? Nice and bright. So I'm just working my way around some of them, all right? I like to give myself a good perimeter here. Okay, like about like so. Now I'm doing this in a light blue because I stamped this out in light blue. If I stamp this out in black, you can do, I don't know, whatever colors you want. If you want purple, stamp those out in purple, and then bring in a pink or something like that, or blue into a violet. Well, let's do this a couple different ways since we have this one already. All right, let's go. Well, let's see if we still have some ink on here. Using reinkers is a good way to go. You don't have to use reinkers. You could have dabbed that into a tumbled glass pad if you wanted to, but I just find it easier to put a few drops of reinker fluid into something like this, sop it up, and look at that wide amount of coverage like that. This is like having kind of an ink pad right in the middle of your fingers, and you're just utilizing the ink pad. You know, because what is an ink pad? It's an absorbent material that accepts and distributes ink. Well, this is an absorbent material, paper towels, that absorbs ink and, you know, can distribute it too. All right, so this one again looks darker. It was the same color that I stamped it out in, but, you know, I just made so many more impressions on that one than this one. I mean, these are done as far as, you know, that could be done right there. I don't, you know, I think it could look a little bit more interesting if you use some additional colors. So let's go with just that one color in this one. And why don't we use some additional colors? I was talking to someone about going with reinkers, and she's on a budget, you know, and I can certainly appreciate that. And she was saying that she's, you know, has some pads and whatnot, And my recommendation to her would be, if you're not going to utilize a color that you're buying to make an impression from your pads, just buy the reinkers. See, I have tons of reinkers here. A lot of them I don't even have the pad for. You get a lot more ink in your reinker fluid. If that's all you're doing is using that color to tone things, to color things, using some sort of applicator, then just get the reinker. Put a few drops down, sop it up, and you're ready to go, okay? And you get a lot more ink than you would on the pad for the same price. Okay, this one's going to turn into a little bit of violet right here. Okay. Maybe I'll go for different values of pink, because this is very dry on here after rubbing it, you know, applying it in all these areas right here. But you can use the much faded version of it to get a duller, lighter impression of it. Inked up again. It's ready to go. Okay. Okay, so here's two different versions of it. This one's just all blue. This one's blue and that pink. All right, now, moving forward, I mean, if you want to, the scenes that look a little bit more advanced, you know, are the ones where I tend to use a little bit more color. Let's move into kind of a darker blue. We'll just use it on that one. Look at that. It's quite a dark. Well, this one's like a medium tone blue, but it's very bright, so it is fairly bold. Okay, still kind of retaining some of those stars and just not coloring them out. But that's it, you know, that was what one extra color took. I don't know. I don't even know. Did it take 30 seconds? I don't know. Okay. That is your star birth right there. All right, now, on these, I mean, you don't necessarily do sky and then color and then stamp your image over it. I could have stamped out my image first and then stamped my sky above it and then colored in. You can do it in various ways, okay? Processes. Let's stamp this Lakeside Cove stamp on one of these. I'll show you how this comes together very quickly. If you have kind of sky going kind of universally over the entire setting like this, you can stamp kind of more silhouette style images, or in this case, this is the lakeside type of image where you have sky and then surface down here. So anything in the sky, you can have reflecting right down there in the surface, okay? So I can stamp this right down here like so. Let's get a good absorption, transference of ink. Okay, I'm holding this down a little bit longer on top of the paper just because this paper is slightly moist. I mean, it's not wet to the touch or anything like that, but you know, the very nature of applying all that ink on there, it does kind of moisten the paper a little bit. Okay, oops, I stamped this. I thought this was black. This is a dark green. Oh well. If I can't tell, maybe that's dark enough. I thought it was black, though. So we're stamping this in dark green. Okay. So there you have a green. See, it looks almost black, though, huh? Bottle green is one of the darkest greens out there on in the stamp world. I love it. Okay. Okay, now let me stamp this one in black here. Okay. And you'll see how fast you can put together a scene. Now, like I said, I could have stamped this out in the beginning, okay? It doesn't have to be this last step here. Okay, this is the oak branch. These two stamps right here are both in nature set number 8. Okay, so we have this kind of overhang here, but look how it kind of nicely frames those stars. It doesn't look so busy now, right? Remember how this star birth looked before all the coloring. And the coloring on this is very simple. Okay. People think that this is the general consensus. It didn't used to be this way because a lot more people worked in this manner, but over the years, a lot of stamping has become coloring book kind of style of stamping, where you stamp out different images, and they're linear images, where it's very distinct where you color in. You're coloring in between the lines, but kind of just going free form like this and just coloring wherever has suddenly, kind of the notion of that has become like hard, okay? Because people can't see these things. But I mean, doing this, I mean, suddenly that's become kind of like a notion of being difficult, okay? It's kind of difficult in concept, okay, but it is not difficult in application, believe me. Okay, so anyways, we have this little scene like this. I think that makes it for a pretty, you know, good, complete, scenic, lighting, and kind of value range statement, okay? Now, there's other little things that we can do. I love adding in little white embellishments right here with additional stars. If you have a silver metallic pen or glitter pen, what do you call those ones? Wink of Stellas. I forgot about these pens for a while. You know, to go in and add a little silvery touch to those stars. Sky figures are perfect for this type of pen here, you know, with your kind of glittery types of looks. The glitter types of pens are really fantastic. What do they call it? Stickles. Yeah, stickles would be perfect in here. You know, can you imagine that? Little twinkling stars and whatnot, especially with like a clear stickle on some of these. Then you can't turn it like that, and it would kind of twinkle in the light. Okay, so let's take a look at this one right here. I could go darker, and I almost always do when I use that type of imagery, because I'd like to have a little bit more of a range, okay? But let's just stick with it like that for right now. And let's just go for a little bit of a kind of a forested look right here. All right, you can see how easy it is to put together something like this. Okay, let's see. If you know, what would be cool here is if you stamped, this one, if you stamped some images out over the top of this, but you embossed them so you'd have this three-dimensional look. Or if I kind of darken in this background even darker, you can go with like white embossing or silver embossing of these trees in front of it to make for a kind of a fantastic Christmas card, don't you think? Okay, yeah, let's play around with this too. I have this tree here. Remember what color I stamped the background in? It was a Prussian blue, okay? So let's take this and let's have a few impressions of this in Prussian blue, okay? Kind of fades into the background because it is the same value as the background, okay? So hopefully these trees here will look like they're a little bit more distant than the trees that I stamp in black in the scene. Okay. All right, so here's some blue ones. Okay. Now, let's stamp some darker ones. Tell you what, let's go with a VersaFine black. VersaFine's an oil-based pigment ink, and it is really quite black. I think there's the Claire ones that some people really love. I don't have any experience with that one, but I've heard it's very good. As I imagine, you know, so many of them are, okay? You just have to kind of experiment around. There are some types of inks that don't dry on certain types of paper. Some papers are kind of more ideally suited for certain surfaces, ink combinations. So you just have to kind of play around with it. Some things aren't very... Oops, I had a little bit of lint on there. See where that didn't stamp out. Anytime you get this kind of little circle like that with a little dot in the middle, that means there was some lint on your stamp. Scenic stamping doesn't matter. What you do is you just go right over it like that. and it's gone. You can overlap everything in scenic stamping, and it eradicates all of your kind of unintentional marks, I would say. Let's use the same leafless pine tree right here, and let's stamp in black. When you stamp something in two different values, the darkest one, in terms of a visual relation, looks closer, doesn't it? Look at that depth right there, and look at that kind of dreamy, textured sky in the background with the star birth. Okay. All right. I mean, I can add more and more of these, but look at this layering right here, okay? And look how much that starbirth imagery recedes into the background because we have other objects that appear so much closer to us, right? See that kind of textured background like that? It makes for kind of an interesting look. And again, I think kind of a dreamy type of scenario. In terms of the visuals, okay, now this type of area in here, when you have a lot of open space, especially if you stamp out the sky imagery, kind of light enough, it's kind of the perfect opportunity for some different types of quotes. Lie on your back and look at the stars. When it is darkest, we see the stars. So you can do something like that. This is Scenic Sentiments 2, okay? And it features mostly kind of your references to the night sky. For the most part, there's things about suns and clouds in there too. Well, let's give this one a shot right here. Let's go with, which one did I pick out? When it is darkest, we see the stars, yeah. It's kind of a optimistic type of statement, don't you think? But sometimes so true. Okay. Let's do this one in kind of a dark black. Okay, I always do a couple practice prints just to make sure that I have this evenly inked up here, and I'm giving a nice even impression. Okay, so pretty quick scene like this. When it's darkest, we see the stars. And, like I said, some different types of embellishments really make for a great looking piece. Let's see. I'm not sure. I need to get some different metallics. I really love silver when I'm doing blue colored scenes like this. This gel pen seems to be working okay. You won't be able to see what I'm doing here very well, if at all. But let me see if I can. I can't. I mean, I can't even see it. These little dots right here. But these little types of things like this, these little dots like that, are the perfect little embellishment for when you give this to someone. So I put a bunch clustered light here. Let's see that. We can see that. I just saw him kind of flash a little bit when I exposed it to the light. Kind of. You can kind of see it in the glare there. Those little silvery. Yeah, there you go. See that right there? See how that kind of illuminates right there a little bit? See that? You can see that. Those little stars in there. But the wing Castella or some glitter would be really fantastic in there as well. Okay, so there's a couple different scenes right there, and that's just using the starbirth image, okay? Let's do something on... Okay, I need to get this going here because I wanted this to be a quick video. Let's do something here. Let me show you how to kind of make for a... I don't know, I wouldn't say a fast, but certainly expedited use of the imagery in here. Let's go with the Milky Way stamp, okay. Now, remember what I was talking about when I said there's different ways you can use the stamps in terms of your sequencing. Like I said, you can, on those first two, I just stamped the images first, and then I colored in around them. Now that's the most kind of straight, basic way to use it, but you saw how I utilized some different colors in there, okay? Just kind of spreading them around. Let's go with that, where did that go? I'm going to need a reinker for my tumbled glass at some point in time. I use it so often. Okay, so tumbled glass, okay. You can mix too. If you have like a pink reinker, you can mix that in here and mix it up and get kind of a violet tone. Well, let's do something here. Let's go with, let's stamp an image out here, okay, as well. Let's start off with the imagery. That's kind of a real, straightforward, kind of basic way to do landscapes, is you stamp everything first and then color it in. A lot of times I like to wait to stamp things like foreground because you saw that versifying black and how dark those images were. A lot of times I like to just wait till the end to stamp something like that out. Okay, let's go with this one. This one's the cabin with fence, all right? And we'll have the cabin with fence under a night sky. Okay, this one I'm stamping on that paper that's called Mohawk Everyday Digital. Silk. What is that again? Let me see. It's called white coated silk. Okay, can't remember. Okay, now when it says silk, it means kind of a satin or dull finish. Okay, so it's not quite matte, and it's not glossy, but it's way closer to the matte than the glossy. Okay, so it makes for a nice smooth surface. All right. I'm kind of surprised at how kind of vibrant the inks can go on to a non-glossy surface, but it is more absorbent than glossy. So spreading your inks around, okay, it's not quite as free-flowing as it would be on a glossy cardstock. So sometimes when I do, instead of using a paper towel, I just use a damp paper kitchen sponge, and I put the reinker fluid directly onto it, or I put it into, I typically use like a lid like this, and I just sop it up like that, and then I apply it, okay? This type of thing is going to hold a lot more ink than something like a paper towel or like an applicator sponge, like a color box stylus tool, or the other types of tools that, kind of have come to be used in the stamping industry. Okay, so I'm going to stamp out Milky Way in here, but let me just show you a way to just kind of expedite the process a little bit, okay? So I'm going in here, and I'm adding some tones in the background, okay? You can tab, you can, I don't know, you can make it a little bit more irregular, okay? I like to go with a fairly solid application of all of my colors on the perimeter to kind of create this kind of vignette type of feel. Looks pretty weird though, doesn't it? I mean, this isn't the end result here, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to create a situation where it looks kind of like a winter night or something like that, okay? So that's why I'm bringing this blue right down into the kind of the landscape and the imagery down here. Okay. All right. I know. It can look like anything. And now you can do that type of thing. You can do streaking if you want to, like this. I mean, you can do whatever you want. All right. Now this is in a fairly light blue, all right? This is a lot lighter than you can see on like a Prussian blue or a navy blue or Memento Danube blue. Oh, Blueprint Sketch. Here, this one's really dark blue. But let's go to the Milky Way stamp image. All right, something like that, or it is that. Now I could do this in black too if I want to, but I like to go kind of in a color scheme. And you saw how I like to bring in foreground imagery, trees, things like that, in the end. So when I stamp out my sky in something lighter than the foreground, it's going to look like it's back in the distance, okay? All right, so anyway, filling this in like so. All right, and okay, now this type of thing kind of baffles people sometime. Okay, if I'm going to stamp this back here, all right, I can put it right over those dark trees and it's not going to matter. It's not as if this blue Milky Way is going to look like it's in front of the trees, even if I stamp it right over the top of the trees, okay? But I don't want it to stamp it right into this cabin. But this is all the masking you'll need, okay? You don't need to mask off every tree because trees are solid. That's where people kind of, you know, in terms of conceptual type of thing, it's really confusing for them quite often. This is just when they're starting off doing this type of stamping too, okay? Believe me, they clue into it like instantly. It's just usually that first time it's kind of like, I don't know if I should be, you know, doing this. It's, you know, I don't know, they think they're doing something kind of, I don't know, like illegal or something like that. There's no stamping police, okay? Okay, so I'm just stamping this right over that irregular background, okay? And what is that going to look like? It's going to vary, hopefully, this impression here. All right, now there's a lot of surface area to all of these designs, okay? And these ones are big. They're the larger versions, so just get plenty of pressure on it, okay? All right, now we have this right here. Now, what can we do? We can add on additional impressions, right, to the side. Or I can add in something like a cloud or something like that on the perimeter. But let's just stick with the imagery from the set for right now, in terms of the sky. Okay. All right. Don't build it exactly right next to it, right? These aren't like bricks that we're laying down here. Let me see if I can kind of match up that Milky Way there, okay, a little bit. You'll see where I stamp this out. Okay, see that right there? See how it fills in right there? And let's go for some additional impressions. Okay, see, I need to get in here, so I'm going to come in like right here, because I can get this into that space, okay, right in here. Come in like that, so I'm overlapping. Kind of overlap, here it is like this, and it's kind of coming in at an angle like this, okay? Okay, so like so. Then we have all of this area around here, okay? But see, kind of having that area already colored in the background there, you almost don't need to color over this, you know, if you don't want to. So this is a really, you know, a pretty quick way of working here. Overlapping, change the angle. Overlapping maybe an inch or so, so quite a bit. Okay. All right. So we have that whole area of sky filled in. It needs a little bit more tone up here, kind of. But if you use some foreground imagery, you won't need anything else up there. All right, so I stamped out the Milky Way in this Prussian blue. Let's grab our applicator like this. Let's bring that same blue down here. I'm not saying bring the Milky Way down here into the snow, but let's bring this color down here, okay, to create a little bit more continuity. I like to bring in a little bit more tone on the perimeter just to kind of frame things off a little bit, but this is not a hard thing to do. Watch this. Ink it up, blot it down like this. Okay, see how easy that is to do? Everyone always says, oh, you make it look so easy. Well, I'm doing this, literally. Okay? And I'm doing that on here. Okay? Doing it here, around here, and around here. It's a strange concept, but believe me, this is not hard stuff. All right, now see how that kind of framed that off right down here? And it brought that same value from up there down here. Okay. Now, I don't know if I want to use this big old thing to color that cabin here. Let's put a little bit of tone onto this cabin, okay? This is a really pale, kind of tan. I'm going to use some blues on it though, because this is nighttime and you really wouldn't see color, you know, under kind of starlight or moonlight. Okay, so see that right there? I colored the side of the cabin, but I left the roof light. Okay? So now it is being top lit. Okay? You saw me use this reed stamp here. Let's try that here. Okay? Don't cover everything up. I like to have it kind of on the sides like this. Okay. Stamped at different angles, overlapping. And let's try a different design other than the oak branch used in my previous one. Okay, let's go for these kind of dangling leaves. Oh, let's do this too. Let's stamp these leaves in both a dark blue, okay, like so. They're really going to blend in with the background. I don't know if we'll be able to see them very well at all, okay. Okay, so this is very light, you know, or dark blue, but so you can't really see them very well, right? But what you do is you just come back to your black, or you can use the VersaFine black if you want it even darker. Let's just go with the dye-based black ink here. And I'm stamping these ones up a little bit higher, or just, you know, you can kind of spread it out a little bit. I'm not trying to stamp exactly over my previous impressions. As a matter of fact, I'm stamping them out to the side. But you can create depth just within these little branches, you know, or overhanging leaves or whatnot. Okay. Something like this. Let's see if you can see that depth right in the leaves right in here. Look at that, you know, starry night like that. It makes for a fairly dramatic type of looking scenario. I think there's a certain, like I said, romance to it. There's something to the night sky. You know, people like taking kind of a moon, you know, starlit night walk, sunset walks, that type of thing. I mean, it could be a romantic type of setting anywhere, but you typically hear kind of these, you know, let's go for a walk at the beach at sunset or something like that. I think it's the sunset too, but I think it's also the twilight and that transition into, you know, the nighttime sky that's really fantastic out there. Okay, let's do one more and let's see if we can make this quick here. Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's the Starbirth in here or the Milky Way. It's used the same way. This has a different look to it, though, don't you think? You know, with that type of imagery, with those big, huge 4-point types of stars within it. There's a few points in these ones, but it's much more twinkly and kind of mellow. This one's a little bit more, I don't know, kind of powerful. And this one's a little bit more kind of understated in terms of your typical just Milky Way sky, okay? Not that they can't have the same similar feel if you treat them kind of with similar colors and whatnot. Okay, let's just play around with something. Let's just do something very, I would say different, basic in terms of just the usage of the designs. And let's see how that looks here. Okay, let's go with, oh, I don't know. Shall we go for the, do I want to go with the nebula or the spiral galaxy? Let's go for the spiral galaxy. see what this looks like. Okay. All right, this is the metallic paper. I don't work on this too much because it has a real kind of specialty look to it. It's very... Dye-based things don't transfer onto this paper really well because it's sealed off. It has that pearlescent type of texturing on it. But sometimes you can come up with some pretty cool looks to this type of paper right here. So that being said, I wouldn't layer, like, you know, very many colors on here if I layered any at all, okay? Oh, let's show you what this looks like with the cloud as well, maybe. Okay, so we'll stamp this out. Plenty of pressure on the interior. Okay, now remember, this is going to look very light. I haven't used it in a while, so I'm not really sure, so this might be a surprise to me as well. Okay. Boy, it did print out pretty nice, though. But it's more like a 50% gray, wouldn't you say, than like a 95% black, you know, in the pad. So this has kind of that sheen to it, so yeah, it's pretty cool using it. All right. All right. Let's introduce this cloud into the mix. All right, cloud cumulus. One of the techniques that I use on the cloud cumulus is I wipe off the perimeter pretty good before I stamp it out, okay? Don't be gingerly with it. Take off a pretty good amount. Overlap into the impression. I'm overlapping a good, I don't know, ½ inch maybe. Okay. Holding this down for a decent amount of time because, like I said, it does kind of resist the ink to some degree. It'll dry on here, but don't, you know, run your hand through it real fast, okay? Or anything like that. Okay. There's tons of videos on the use of this cloud, but just in general, I have the billows facing up or in towards the light every time I stamp. So it's like here, when I stamp it over here, it's going to be like this. On the other side, it's going this way. Okay, so its directional lighting has been designed into this stamp design. Okay. All right. I don't think pigment ink will dry on this. I could be mistaken, I'm not sure. This Spiral Galaxy design, I think it took me like 2 or 3 months to draw. You know, I wasn't working on it 40 hours a week or anything like that, but it took forever. And look at that detail in there. So anytime you stamp out a design from me, it's like you have drawn, personally, a drawing that would take, like, this would be like a several month drawing then, right? Because if that's how long it took me, so it doesn't take that long to make the impression, but what you are essentially doing is you're inheriting whatever abilities I have in terms of drawing and the time it took for me to draw it in your composition like this, okay? All right, so anyways, that is that. But look at this kind of iridescent paper. It looks like matte paper like that, but let me see. See that shine to it? It's kind of a silvery iridescence. And I really love that. But let's just keep this simple. You know, I mean, I could add a little bit more tone to this with some additional black ink or something, but I'm not going to do that. Now, ideally, I'd want some trees to be kind of bold against that background, but like I said, I've tried it before, and it just didn't. It didn't dry on some. It didn't dry. My pigmenting, the VersaFine, didn't dry on photo paper. So if it didn't dry on photo paper, I just don't think it's going to dry on this iridescent one. I think this iridescent metallic type of paper, I think it's even think it's even more sealed off than maybe photo paper. Photo paper has this emulsion coating on there, so I don't know, maybe it would dry, I'm not sure. Okay, see how that stamps out? Then this is a very solid image, this Spruce Tree Lg. But even that solid application of black, it's very gray. To me, these, I don't know, you know those, I haven't seen a lot of them. They call them silver prints, okay? Back in the days of photography. I think it was the silver plate type of kind of print that they would create. And those had a certain type of look to them. You know, we see them as being antiqued, but I think even at the time, there wasn't a lot of contrast in them and whatnot. So kind of having kind of a lower range of contrast kind of lends itself to that type of feel inherently in the piece itself. So no range to that, more antiqued. Okay, so this is what these impressions look like in versifying on glossy cardstock. Now look at this, looks like on a metallic cardstock. Now this is done in dye-based inks, which is, you know, lighter to begin with than versifying, but you know, the dye-based Marvy ink is not, you know, 50% lighter than versifying, but it certainly is on this type of paper right here. Okay, so here goes this trees, just so we can do a little comparison contrast. I have a little bit of that versifying on here on this tree because I didn't clean it off after I used it, but yeah, okay, that's pretty light. Okay. I don't know if it looks like this leafless pine tree is in front of or in back of these spruce trees. All right, look at that. And this would look really fantastic if it was matted on something, and I don't know, you can put it on any thing about kind of a silvery type of finish like this. I don't know, I'd probably go, maybe I'd go with a dark matte around that and, like, you know, some other silver around that. Can you imagine that type of mounting on that and how great that would look? I'll do that. Maybe I'll format some of these cards before I do this video. Okay, now on this series of designs, let's see, where's my insert? You can see these different eagles right here. I have these eagles in larger sizes sold individually, but I had some space on the plate that I could fill in here, so this one's like a right and left version of the eagle soaring, but these ones are really tiny. Look how small these are. But you do get kind of a selection of birds if you want to use them in your skies, and that has its own kind of drama and feel to that type of visual here. I'm going to try to put this eagle in an area where you can kind of see it. I don't want to put it over anything that's too solid in the background. Okay. I always think kind of one eagle like that looks a little bit lonely, so I don't know. If it was a bigger one, a single one might look fine, but you know, in its kind of a majestic look. But let's go with another small one back here. These two are personally, I think that kind of like something like this, having these two eagles kind of in flight, kind of looks somewhat romantic. I think these make for a good anniversary type of iconography here. So seeing those two kind of flying around like that, it's kind of like a swirl too, so I don't know, it makes for a kind of a dramatic visual, and there is quite a bit of detail in that design that shows up. I was kind of surprised that it stamped out as well in the metallic. I've used some different types of metallics like Star Dream, but see that right there? all that detail shows up pretty well, even on a fairly resistant paper. And you can see how much it's resisting the ink from the fact that this is a black, you know, impression of that tree, and it looks so kind of faded gray like that. So, but this is really fun. And like I said, if you mount this onto, like even this, like I said, any type of paper, you can do blues like this, and I would do some sort of thing like this and maybe go with a metallic on the perimeter like that for a card, and then mount it onto a folded card or whatnot. But that would be really fun. Okay, so anyway, I'll do the nebula in a different scene, but I don't know. It's endless in terms of the possibilities with kind of sky figures like this. Like I said, I really love the night sky and the different looks and different types of kind of emotional settings that these types of images can establish in a piece. And you can do them in any colors, naturally. I went with a lot of blues here in this case, but you can stamp them out in black for more contrast between the stars and the background. If you go with the black, though, like that, just fill in around the perimeter with colors or whatever, and then eventually go to black, too. That would be my recommendation. Or if you're doing something like this, you don't have to do any coloring at all, especially if you have the cloud stamping, just kind of incorporate that in there. This is minimal coloring right here. I just used one color to, in addition in there. This one is one where I've added about 3 colors, and you can see where the mix of kind of a pink and blue kind of mixed to form, a different type of lavender in the background there. All right, so anyways, that is nature set number 22. I'm finally glad to get that out there and to get this type of imagery into kind of a cohesive set. A lot of you already have this type of stuff. A lot of these images, too, have been in the wood-mounted stamp overstock auctions as well, so you can get a really good deal on those types of things as well. But have a lot of fun with it. Overlap. Now, see where I've overlapped things like the Milky Way and the Starbirth. Starbirth is kind of focused in on these, pretty specific stars right here. The Milky Way is a little bit more general. These ones right here, I don't know if I'd want 5 different spiral galaxies, all with that same texture around there. So I tend to fill in with, if you stamp something like this in the center and you had a lot of perimeter area, you can stamp, you can fill it in with clouds like that. But if you filled this one in, I would probably take the Milky Way and fill in around it, as opposed to just going for multiple impressions of the spiral galaxy. Same thing with the nebula, too. The nebula might get a little bit busy if you just do multiple impressions to fill in the perimeter area after the initial impression. So maybe the Milky Way out there, or just bringing in extra tone. You can just kind of use your applicator and fill in around it with different colors, and then eventually maybe some black, and that would really make that nebula, and that what it is like this illuminated gas, glowing gas, and you can really make that stand out and pop out. You can do it some kind of color, red or whatever, or purples or whatever, different types of nebula. Those gases tend to look like, but you darken the area around them, it makes those areas kind of stand out a little bit more. That goes the same thing for all of these negative space light sources like this. This one's, represents, millions of little, planets and suns, and, each one of these arms right here. And these ones right here, you can see the individual suns, stars and whatnot that are kind of glowing in there. We want those to stand out. Just take a little bit of tone and add that tone around it. How much do you want those to stand out? If you really want them to stand out super strong and bright, then you just keep adding in additional colors without toning them out. And the things that are remaining are the things that are standing out. Metallics. Okay. Glossy cardstock. All right. And your matte cardstock, or in this case, a little bit more of a satin finish, okay? Pretty bold though still, but yeah, that VersaFine really works well. on there. No, that was the Marvy black. So this is the blackest of them all. That versified black. As far as my supplies go, I heard that Claire is really good too, and I don't know some of the other recommended dark value media out there. Okay, so if you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section. And hope you enjoyed the video. Stamp out some stars, have some fun. You don't have to have all these landscape images in your scenes. It could just be a starry night background or something like that. And that works out really perfectly for things like quote stamps and, I don't know, word stamps, happy birthday or something like that. Or, you know, stamp out a couple eagles against kind of a romantic nighttime situation, and it makes for a perfect kind of a friendship type of card, or anniversary or whatnot. Kind of symbolic, right? Okay, so anyways, thanks again.